Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited for today's conversation. Today, I'm joined by Kyle Berry, the CEO and co founder of Kaizen Marketing Agency. Kyle's story is especially interesting because it doesn't follow the usual founder arc, right? So, he went from growing up in a family business that lost everything during the recession to building a marketing agency centered around transparency and measurable revenue, while also competing at the professional level in paintball. What stood out to me is that Kaizen isn't just a brand name for him, it really seems to shape how he thinks about team development, client growth, and personal performance. Kyle, thanks for being here.
Well, that was an awesome intro. Thank you, Daniela.
Of course. So you said that the reason that Kaizen exists is because your family lost your business and home, and you didn't want other business owners to go through that same kind of pain, right? So when did that experience stop being a personal story and start becoming like the foundation for how you wanted to build a company?
So, I believe it is always going to be a foundation of who I am and how I look at things. Luckily enough, my family and my father brought me up in the kitchen. I started working 40 hours a week by the time I was about 13 years old. And losing that business gave me a perspective of what some business owners have to go through, the difficulties that they have within their lives. And then after that, I realized that the key determining factor, there's two key determining factors for any success in business, and that is the operations and the outreach. And a lot of people build a strong operations. They know how to do the service line that they created, or know how to sell the product that or they know how to represent the product that they created. But when it comes to sales, when it comes to front facing in front of customers, there is a million ways to do it. And what I have found in my research is that the best businesses all do it the same way. There's no secret sauce to it. There's just what I consider the perfect box, which is a orchestration of certain tools and representation of a business that allows them to grow. So, you know, it will always be a core factor of who I am, that lesson learned on both fronts of the pain that I went through that I don't want other people to experience, but also the confidence of that I could lose everything that I could possibly own, from my house to my bed. I mean, we lost it all within 2 weeks, and still be able to come back and find a way to be successful by going through the education and the knowledge of what it means to really be successful in business. So, in today, when I'm talking to my staff or I'm talking to my clients, that pain is still there. That I can hear it in some of our clients' voice when they're not performing well. I can hear it in some of our employees' voices when they're not finding success, because we really built a culture. We are here to truly help grow businesses and bring profitable returns for our clients. And when that doesn't happen, we want to feel that pain. Pain is something that we at Kaizen don't try to avoid. We try to recognize and understand why it's happening, and make sure that we're trying to move away from that pain, and really find success for our clients. So it is a foundational factor of our core values. It's the way that we do business. And, when I got into the marketing world back in 2014, after the business fell apart, I found that, yes, there is tools out there are systems out there that allow these businesses to grow, but there is a lack of efficacy that's happening that creates a part-time growth for a lot of these businesses. And that's what I found to be the biggest problem. And I realize now, after a decade of doing this, that 90% of business owners are in that pocket of they know their operations, they love their business, they feed their family on it, they want it to grow, but because of a marketing agency or a sales guy or a lack of understanding of what it takes to actually grow, they've been renting the opportunity for growth and not building it internal to their company. So that's really when we've pivoted and started helping businesses own that infrastructure of growth internal to their company, so that it doesn't matter if they work with Kaizen for 60 days or 6 years, that they're always going to have the infrastructure they need to scale on the success that they're finding, instead of renting that success, which that part-time renting of that, we're using an agency that says owns their ad account, owns their tracking, owns the data that really matters for their success, really is shooting them in the foot for where they want to go for a business. Because nobody starts a business for a short-term sprint. Even if you're building it to sell and you're doing it in a sprint session, you're still creating a company that in your mind's eye can last 5, 10, 15 years, even if you're looking to sell it in 2. And that's the infrastructure you're putting together. So to do that correctly, you need to have the right tools and systems owned by the business. So it's never going away. I can tell you that. I am still motivated every single day by the journey that I've gone through. And a lot of the clients that we work with know my story. And they realize that that is the pain that I keep inside of me to make sure that they don't have to experience the same thing. And I emphasize that to my staff so they understand how difficult it really is to go through a process like that. So yeah, it hasn't gone away. I wouldn't say I have any regret whatsoever. It definitely is something that motivated me to be better. And it's put me in a really good position today to understand what it takes to be successful. But I just, the hardest part is to watch any other business owners go through that same process. It really is heart wrenching for me. And luckily enough, after a decade of doing this, I have not had a single client with our efforts and success ever come to that same position. And I'm proud to say that.
Amazing. I love to hear that. I really do. One thing that really stood out is your push against how a lot of agencies operate, so like the long contracts and like vague reporting, focusing on vanity metrics instead of like actual revenue, right? So when you think about Kaizen today, what are the operating principles that you believe clients feel immediately when they start working with you?
First thing's ownership, right? Brought this up already, but like the biggest thing is that when we come into a business, we are not saying, okay, we're going to take your brand name, we're going to take the entity that you created and leverage that to use into our systems of marketing to be able to push traffic over to you. What people need to realize is that only 3% of the market is ever ready to purchase at any given time. The other 97% are in a different stage of the buying cycle. And your ad dollars and the money that you're putting out there are nurturing that other 97%. And if you don't have ownership of the ad accounts, the tracking, and the infrastructure of your business, you lose out on the 97% of the consumer base that you'd be able to sell down the line as they get into the right buying stage within their personal relations with whatever service or product that you're offering. So the biggest thing there, first thing was just the ownership of that data. And then the next was, well, we're owning the data of outbound advertising. What is the goal of the outbound advertising? Metrics like likes and comments and social engagements and impressions, general clicks, all of these are data points that help us understand what's working and what's not working. But the only thing that drives business forward is revenue. That is it, right? You need to be able to make money and you need to be able to bring in more revenue than you're putting out in dollars of expenses. So as we came into committing ourselves and helping businesses grow, we wanted to commit on the actual goal that we all have together, which is increasing the revenue of your business. So if we are not talking about purchase conversion value and the amount of revenue coming in, and we've done this for lead generation clients, we've done this for direct online ordering clients, comparatively to the dollars that we're going out, then we're not having the same conversation. And if, I feel for any business owner that's working with a marketing agency that emphasizes brand positioning and impressions and things of that nature. Yes, those things are important for sure. But every brand positioning and impression that happens should lead down the road to revenue. And if it's not, you might actually be doing the injustice for your business. Anytime that we work with a client, the one thing that they feel immediately is our desire for that revenue generation. And they feel that from the very beginning. So within the first 10 days of any onboarding of a client, they not only have full ownership of everything they need to be successful from, again, tracking ad accounts, Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, their website, which is crazy for the fact that people still pay $500 hosting fees for websites when it really costs 39 bucks. They have ownership of all those things and they realize that there's a team that have asked them the questions that they've never been asked by most other agencies, such as what's your break-even ROAS? What should your CPA be to be profitable? What's your COGS and operating expenses around the service or product that you're selling so that we truly know what is the goal, right? The goal is revenue, but we want profitable revenue. Right? There's a big difference between profit and just revenue. If you give me $1,000 in ad spend and I deliver back $200 in revenue, I created you revenue, but you lost money through and through. Our goal is that if you hand us $1,000 in ad spend, we're able to understand that if we sell $5,000, that $1,000, there's going to be $3,000 in COGS, another $1,000 in marketing expenses and operating fees, and at least you have $1,000 left in your pocket of pure profit. And that's the goal with each of us. And that's something our client feels right away. You'd be amazed how many people don't know these numbers. So in the first 10 days, it's ownership and clear understanding of the goal. The goal is profitable revenue and working that through with the client to define what profitable revenue really looks like.
Right on. Kyle, so I'm curious, what are the signals you look for early on to understand whether like the real issue is traffic, their offer, follow-up, conversion, or maybe it's something deeper operationally?
So that's a nice thing about paid media. That's really organic social media and some SEO efforts are very difficult to define these things, right? Because SEO is a long-term process that will start driving traffic, and you're actually not going to get the return on your advertising dollars for 3, 6, 9 months. And organic social media is the same way. You can be posting for 5 to 6 years before you hit one viral post that actually generates revenue for you. And there's not much clarity there on exactly what is creating success or failure outside of, say, social engagement or website traffic coming in for SEO. But with paid media, the day that we launched the ads, dollars start going out around creative to our ideal consumer profile, and they tell us, are we actually resonating? So when we're looking at our data points within paid media, we're looking at what is our cost per outreach. This is telling us, hey, are we resonating with the consumer base that we're reaching out to and the platform that we're leveraging? If your CPMs or cost per 1,000 reach is too high, you're not resonating with the platform itself. You're not putting out content the platform wants. If your click-through rate is too low, it means that you're not developing the messaging, the angle, and the creative that's actually enticing the consumer. And that means we have to readjust the way we're positioning the business and what we're showing about the business to get a better click-through rate over into your website. Then when we start diving into the traffic on the website, because for business owners out there, you got to keep in mind that all of these platforms for advertising, their goal is just one thing: get them to your website. Your website's job is to sell them and convert them on either being a lead or a paying customer and purchasing online. With that being said, you have to follow the full funnel journey. So when they hit the homepage, what is our bounce rate? What is our conversion rate from homepage to lead, or homepage to view content to add to cart to initiate checkout to purchase? And that starts identifying the key components of what we need to fix. We can see within about 14 days of paid media going out, or within $500 of ad spend, what is the current problem when your business enters into the market in front of net new customers. It might be our messaging isn't resonating. It might be the way we present the business isn't right for the platforms. It might be that we're driving amazing traffic, but the website itself isn't portraying, it's not aligned with what the ads are saying, and it's not aligned with what the client is needing, leading us to a lower overall conversion rate. What we love to do is we love to understand the problems that happen within these campaigns, because they come very black and white when we put numbers on it. This is not Kyle Berry coming in and saying, I don't really like the look of your website. I don't think that's going to convert, right? My father
Yeah,
had an old school assumption, or old school saying that assumption makes an ass out of you and me. And in marketing, we need to make a level of hypothesis when it comes to why the problems are happening. But instead of assuming what works, we believe in the Kaizen ideology of continuous testing. We want to make sure we're running very granular scientific tests that give us clarity of, are we improving our overall campaign, or did the way we approach the market fail? And with that failure, why did it happen? And with the success, why is that happening? So we can lean into it. Once we put data behind it with clear advertising dollars, it then leads to transparency of what we need to change. And sometimes people don't like to hear what they need to change, but at the end of the day, profitable returns come from when you understand the consumer persona that you're connecting with, the angle that resonates with that consumer, and the offer that pushes them to go and actually close as a customer in your business. If those three things aren't aligned, you could spend millions of dollars and never find profitable returns. So our goal is to really just find the alignment of how to represent the client correctly and represent the client to the consumer in the right way for them to convert at a profitable rate.
all right. Yeah, so there's a real through line in your story around systems and accountability. I was doing some research, and at one point you mentioned going from about 18K a month down to 4K a month after just one bad internal breakdown, and then like rebuilding around SOPs, training, and structure. So looking back, what did that period teach you about the difference between being talented at delivery and actually building, a business?
Great question. It taught me that I suck at coaching people at the current moment, right? So I'm, at right now, I am the coach for the U.S. national team in paintball. I coach a lot of players all around the U.S. I use paintball as in my example of coaching, but my staff of 35 people get coaching lessons from me every single day. If it's not overviews within our Slack channels, it's actually one-on-one conversations where I'm coaching them. And what I realized when I got the business up to about $30,000, and I was like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I'm finding success. I get this. I understand it. I assumed other people would understand what I already knew. I was young at the time. I was 23, 24 years old, and I was doing $30,000 a month at about 60% margins. I was living very, very well. And I didn't realize the turmoil that I had gone through to get myself in that position to be able to find that level of success. And my assumption was that I could go to Fiverr or Upwork and start hiring people that can do organic social media or paid advertising, and they would understand what I understand, and then we'd be able to execute it together. And that is not the case anywheres ever. If a business owner is listening to this right now, you are unique. The way you do business is unique. The way that you see your company is unique. The way you want to talk to your customers is unique. The way that you want to execute is unique to you and only you. And this is why there's so many variations of the same businesses all over the US, all over the world. So my learning lesson at that point was I need to start understanding how to articulate and document what's in my head, which is a very difficult thing for an executioner, right? I always like to bring up service-based businesses. If you're going out and you are putting in a fence, and I ask you, how do you put in a fence? If you've done it for probably 5 or 6 years, you would say, oh, it's easy. They just do this, bum, 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 and no problem. I've never put a fence in my life. I would say that's not easy. I have no idea what you're talking about. And that's exactly how your employees act if you do not have a structured way to articulate and document how you do things. In today's world of AI, it's made it a lot easier to be able to actually build standard operating procedures. But my biggest recommendation for all entrepreneurs that feel like they have a great business, but they don't know how to articulate it is to look into the EOS model, the entrepreneurial operating system model. There's some great books like Traction and What the Heck is EOS that can get you down that path. And really, these are just business owners that have found a way to better articulate how to do business your way. And then with that articulation, with those documentation of how to do it, how to put it in front of your employees so they execute it correctly. And then finally, after they're executing it, how do you document and develop scorecards so that you know if you're doing things correctly and you're actually moving the needle in the right direction. And that's really what I learned during that time, is that I need to not only be able to articulate what to do, be able to put it in writing, be able to teach people how to execute it, even though I have it in writing, and then be able to hold people accountable on the results that I expected from the business. It was about a 2 to 3 year learning lesson and an amazing hire of my partner, Santi Lozano, one of my partners, Santi Lozano, in 2020 that allowed me to bring that whole system together. By the time Santi came in, I already had my ideas documented, but I didn't know how to train correctly. I didn't know how to implement it into operations, and he helped me fill that hole. So the business would not be where it is today if I wasn't able to, one, articulate it, two, document it, and three, make sure I hold my team accountable of that expectations. But any business owner that doesn't have that, you will hit a brick wall in growth if you do not have your structured document.
That's some great insight, Kyle. Thanks for sharing that. So Kaizen has grown from a solo operation, you mentioned, into a team with like 20 plus employees, a pretty broad client base, I'd say, and a pretty strong emphasis on internal development. So as a founder, how are you thinking now about keeping that quality high while also giving the team enough structure and autonomy to grow?
Culture. So, I've talked to hundreds of business owners that have been very, very successful, especially over the last about 18 months, 18 to 24 months, of how do they do it? Our staff right now is 35 people. We have multiple different people in multiple different categories, and culture and the expectations of how we act as people, not just within Kaizen, but as how we act as people, is what keeps us together and aligned around the same path. Going after a goal together as a team is easy, but to come together as a team and a group of people and not know where the goalpost is and not know what the overall end game is, it makes it so that you can go in a million different directions. And your culture keeps the goalpost aligned in everybody's eye to know where we are going. And what I mean by culture is that you need to define how you communicate to people. You need to define what success looks inside your business. You need to define what is not tolerable whatsoever within your business. You also need to define exactly how we treat each other within the business. We believe in this high level of respect, where if you're going to come into Kaizen, you're going to go into a 2-week training course directly through our SOPs and me to be able to know that you are a top level executioner or whatever field you're in. And then you go through 2 weeks of trial and error process where we actually put you in live accounts. By the end of those 4 weeks, trust has been developed with you as an employee, or you're fired. That's the way our process goes. And after those 4 weeks, once we have trust in you that you're able to not only execute what you said you could do when you took in the job application, but also be able to articulate and communicate in a way that resonates with the Kaizen culture, respect is developed, and respect is the baseline of everything in culture and business. There's too many businesses out there with a, let's say, an X style operations where you are a number in the cog of a machine, and it creates it so that their respect falls off. And if there is no respect, there is no development of culture. So we start off with respect, and then we clearly articulate our core values, our mission in the business, the vision of where we want to go, what is tolerable and what we'd like to see from every employee, what is not tolerable and not allowed. Every single month, we just a few days ago had our monthly huddle. We had everybody on there, and we nominate each other on the team for what they do around our core values. So if somebody had outstanding communication with a client, right? That is one of our core values. If someone was able to find performance in an account that was underperforming, that's one of our core values. If they were able to be transparent and honest when things are going wrong, that's one of our core values. So we emphasize that and show the rest of our team that we care about developing these points around our culture that gives respect for each one of us and knows that we're all on the path of truly finding improvement within ourselves and our clients every single day in a true Kaizen fashion.
Amazing. So this is obviously something you've developed after years of trial and error, right? That's a great system you've got going there, I'd say.
Years and years of trials and error.
Yeah.
Yes, scars, burns, a lot of wasted money, a lot
Mhm.
of wasted money, a lot of wasted time. Okay, I can't say wasted. Learning lessons are never wasted, but this is something that I've come to realize that if you don't push your business to be better, you won't go through these growing pains. I know a lot of people that they will make, six figures a year through whatever business that they have, and they're not looking to push and grow, and they never experienced some of the difficulties and pains that we have gone through and learned from. So yes, it definitely is.
It's a learning curve.
It's a learning curve. Yeah,
Yeah. But you've got it down. It sounds like
I'm still learning. I'm
you're
still learning.
still learning.
Yeah, still learning.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you seem to have a very practical view of marketing. So like not just run better ads, but to build the tracking, improve follow up, tighten up those sales processes, and connect campaign performance back to your actual business outcomes. So when you look at where agencies still leave money on the table for clients, where do you think is the biggest blind spots right now?
Without tracking and attribution, aka without clarity of what is creating revenue, everything is vanity. Everything is vanity. If you do not know where to put your ad dollars that will lead to a profitable return, you are burning cash, truly, right? In today's day and age of data, we have the ability now to integrate full CRM systems. If you're a lead generation client, not to see if we generate a lead and the cost per lead, but to understand the cost of a sales qualified lead, to understand the cost of a booked appointment of a sales, to understand the cost of a purchase for a roofing company, for a fencing company, for things that are happening offline that can be pulled back online. So you get clarity on what was the messaging, what was the positioning, what was the creative, what was the funnel that actually created profitable revenue for our business. Because if you don't have that, where do you know to put the money? You're just guessing at that point. And you have people guessing with your marketing dollars, with your money out of your pocket, is not an ideal way to go about it. And if other agencies were transparent about this, of like, we can't see the data, our goal is to do X, Y, and Z, business owners would be way more understanding of what real good marketing actually is. And that truly is the understanding of the data. And it might seem like a small thing, right? Data does not mean revenue into your business. But if you can tie the revenue to data, you get clarity on where to put your dollars. And if you can ensure that every dollar you put in, you get $3 to $5 back, or every dollar you put in, you get a job, a work done, and a dollar in your pocket to walk away with, then you know where to put your next dollar. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I see across the board. A lot of people want to talk about creative development and, the leveraging of AI in your operations of your business. FYI, if you do not own your ad account, you will never be able to use AI to operate your business, ever. You just can't connect the systems to be able to get clarity around the data. So the progression of this, it's funny to see how the world is coming to this new evolution of what AI and Claude and all of these things can do, but it's the same ladder. that every business owner should go through. They need to define their mission, their vision, their core value, who they are as a company. And then as soon as they have that, they need to develop the infrastructure of their brand. That brand builds the foundation of their physical and digital presence. And then before they ever put a dollar out there, they need to set up their tracking and attribution owned 100% by them. So that way they know every dollar that goes out, the effect of that dollar in their business. So they know where to put the next dollar.
Right. Yeah, those can be like my next follow-up question. If you thought like those blind spots were mostly like strategic, which you're putting a lot of emphasis on, or operational, or even technological at this point. I feel like a lot of business owners, they get caught up with the latest tool or like the latest trend that they kind of forget the path that they're on.
Yes, 100%. I think the two technology should be the third factor of it, right? That should
Yeah,
be we should bring in technology to reduce cost, headache, and operational overload. That's what technology. It's a tool. It is a hammer, right? Instead of
exactly.
punching that nail in, we made a hammer and it made it much easier to put a nail in a board. It's the same thing here. Instead of doing pencil and paper for you being able to do your P&Ls, you can now do it digitally and optimize and automated, which makes it so a 5 hour P&L sheet development has now become 5 minutes, which saves you time, saves you cost, and efficient and increases your efficiency. So technology only comes in once you have developed your infrastructure correctly. And then there's a big operational problem with a lot of businesses. Not so much in the sense of how they do business, that's fine, but how the way they do business translates into profitable revenue into their pocket. You'd be amazed at how many business owners, again, don't know their break even cost per acquisition. They don't know their break even ROAS. They don't even know if they can break even on acquiring a customer and still be profitable in one way or another because they don't understand lifetime value. There is core data points that need to be understood by every single business owner. And that's really what you are. Once your business starts growing, you are a person that understands numbers because you are playing the game of dollars out and dollars in constantly. So if you don't have a clarity on exactly the key identifying numbers in your business that determine profitability, you will never be able to play this game long term or play this game to a way of making the amount of money that you want to make. So yes, strategy and structure are definitely a problem because people have not really been clearly told what is that box that I told you about of all of the things that you need to grow your business, which hopefully becomes more and more transparent as people use AI and Claude because they all give you the same answer. It doesn't matter if you're unprompted Claude or you're unstructured Claude. If you ask it, how do I grow my business? It's going to say the same exact thing. You need to make sure your foundation's built out correctly, which goes in the attribution website and your listings. You have to have a creative flywheel because we live in a world where most attention is based around social media structure, and you need a creative to emphasize your business. You then need to get that creative out into customers or your messaging out to customers, and that needs to lead to a clear funnel that converts the customers. And then you have to have a clean operating system that nurtures that customer, executes in the job, and then brings them back to the highest over lifetime value, either through a CRM or through a ESP and email platform like Klaviyo. It's the same system. If it's Nike, Walmart, it doesn't matter. They all do the same exact thing. So having that clarity of what you need to actually be successful is a great thing to have for all business owners. And any agency that cares about your growth will give you that clarity. But what they can't give you is the clarity of your internal operations and numbers to understand your COGS, your operating expenses, your average ticket order, your profitability per sale, the average return rate of that customer, AKA what delivers your lifetime value of that customer over a 12, 24, or 36-month span. Those are the data points that are actual real money in your business. And those are the things that they need to understand. So those are the two biggest pitfalls I see with most business owners. Once you have those two locked in, you will realize that technology is not complex anymore. You are now just looking for tools to help fill the holes you have in your business or expedite the processes that you've already built in your businesses to reduce your costs and increase your overall margins.
Okay. That's some great advice. Everyone listening, take him up on it. So, when you look ahead in the next 12 to 24 months, what feels most important to get right at Kaizen? Is it deeper specialization, better systems, stronger client acquisition, AI? I know we've talked about AI for a bit, and team enablement, or maybe it's something else entirely.
AI is a big factor right now. The evolution of what we've had developed. So we've always wanted to be a very cost effective agency, which means that We honestly are white labeled by many other agencies that use our service and charge 5 to 7x of what we charge because they're able to do so because of the service that we supply. But we've always done our low cost management fee structure simply because we want to make sure there's more dollars to put towards ad spend, which actually deliver true revenue in the business, creating more levels of profitability. And then our goal is to keep the client forever and be able to be with them and support them so they can take that weight off their shoulders and know that's going to be able to grow. And we do that on month-to-month contracts, right? So when we're working on today with the evolution of AI, we have realized two major things. One, the development of the digital infrastructure that used to cost thousands of dollars is now pennies in the dollars. And this is everything from video development, image development, website creation, and much, much more. So our goal is to build that infrastructure in our business while the field is ever evolving so that we can pass over that reduced cost to our clients so they can stay on the cutting edge of what's needed to be successful. And the second part of that is that the evolution of AI has allowed to give the one thing that we've all hoped for as business owners forever now, which is a clarity of condensing all of our data into a single area. It's very hard to be able to pull information, and we'll use an e-commerce business as an example. Klaviyo data, Meta ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, Shopify data, their physical brick and mortar efforts that come in together, and bring all that into a single dashboard where you can get clarity on where, again, you should put your next dollar. Right? With Claude is really the platform that I use on a regular basis. With Claude's new MCP connectors and the ability to integrate into all of these platforms, you can now have a single source of truth where Claude's not going to tell you how to win at the game of business. It can give you some recommendations and it can try, but it's going to give you the same blanket recommendations that it gives everybody else. And there's a reason there's an 80% failure rate within the first 5 years of business. It's because everyone does the same thing and they all get the same results, which ends up being failure. What it does give you, though, is clarity on the data so that you're able to make your own decisions on a very holistic view of the business instead of looking at these singular platforms like Meta, which wants to over-report, Google, which wants to over-report, email marketing, which is only based on customer retention. All of these things don't give full clarity of the information of the business. And if you look at the back end of like Shopify attribution, it's 80%. It never is clear on the actual consumer influx and where they're coming from. So you have, as a business owner, you have all these dollars going out, you have all these tools that you're using, and you can't look at a single thing to determine where do I put my next dollar to get the highest return for the dollar. AI has allowed us to fix that and bring it all into a single dashboard. So our goal is by the end of 2026 here is that with that onboarding process that we have, where we give ownership of the ad accounts and the tracking and everything else, the next thing that we'll be adding to that is Claude and building out a Claude instance for you as a business owner, connecting all your tools to Claude. And then we are building a repository of our own special skills and attributes that we do uniquely at Kaizen, that if you become a client of ours, we're able to connect that repository to your Claude. So we enhance not only your ability to see your data, but also be able to use Claude for further information about your business. And then if you ever separate from us, you keep the Claude instance connected to all of your accounts. You lose our special skills that we get to attach to it. So that's what we're working on now, is that staying on top of the cutting edge of AI. But the second part of that is that as we grow and develop and the world is ever changing, so is our playbooks and so is our operations as a business. So we're constantly updating the way we want our employees to act, our clients' expectations, and we're a retention-based agency. We have, we're one of Klaviyo's biggest referral partners. They send us all of their hospitality businesses. We have a lot of other referral partners that bring us over business. We currently cannot turn on our acquisition funnel because we have too much of clients on our Rolodex right now that want to come into Kaizen, and we care about success of each and every one of our clients. So we have throttled and slowed down our growth, not to make sure that our P&Ls are balanced and that we're profitable, to make sure that you as the client are finding profitable returns. And that's something very unique about our business. I'm not looking to be a multi-billionaire and be driving a Lambo from Kaizen Marketing Agency. I am looking to become the best marketer in the world, and I do not do that by failing at the clients that give me the opportunity to grow their business.
Right on. So if someone listens to this and walks away understanding just one thing about how you build businesses, lead teams, or approach growth, what would you want that to be?
Define the goalpost. Define what success looks like. Understand that every business owner, this is probably a shock to some of you, but you all really know it. It's all fugazi. Everything that we create is in our own head. We made it real. All of these, the way our business function, what our business is, how we present ourselves, our messaging, our colors, it is all fabrication in our own mind. And we do a great job at fabricating these concepts that are supposed to either help the world or advance people or do whatever your goal was as initial mission for your business. But make sure that as you build that business, you have clarity of what success looks like. As long as you know what game you are playing and how to win that game, the game becomes a lot easier to win. It's when you're playing the endless game without a winning goalpost or a goal structure to go after is where you start spiraling and not knowing what direction to go. So make sure that if you're an entrepreneur and you're coming in and to grow your business and develop, you set the goalpost of what that is. And it should be very clear. It should be a revenue goal with number. It should be an actual profit margin with a hard number and understanding how to actually execute on that. And if you're just coming into being an entrepreneur, make sure when you create your business, you create a mission and a vision. That mission is who you are and what you're going to do in this world. And the vision is what you plan on doing with that mission and how you're going to change the world in the next 3 to 5 years. And then that should lead into the core values of how you act to execute that mission. And that will give you your goalpost.
All right, Kyle, this has been incredibly valuable. I really appreciate how open and thoughtful, you were, especially around building a business and with real accountability behind it, right? So thanks so much for making the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Danielle.